Maricopa County in Arizona.
Right on. All right. Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. I'm here. It's the most amazing day, post-election day 2024. The world has been saved from itself, or something, or something.
Or is it the end of democracy as we know it?
It's definitely the end of democracy as we know it. And as you know, I'm not that big of a fan of democracy, so could be worse.
1.5 cheers for democracy. All right.
Boo. It's the best possible governing system, except for a disinterested monarch who feels somewhat accountable to his populace, who knows we'll tar and feather him and chop his head off if he misbehaves.
Still not on the monarchist train, but I'm on the Winston Churchill saying democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others.
Well, that was actually what I was trying to say, and I had to come with something. Had to come up with something,
But yeah. So of course, folks, we're gonna talk about the election, the results, what we learned, maybe the future of all the political parties, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian too. We'll talk about that.
Unity, bro. Unity.
Yeah.
Going for unity.
And of course, we will likely talk about the case of another government murder of beloved pets.
Just another one. I mean, it's
another
like
one.
Just one more, no big deal, guys. We got nothing to worry about. I'm going to talk about it. Like I have this harsh criticism of it but it's like kind of long and boring, but still, it's
really selling it, Tim.
I know.
Keep listening to our radio show. Tim's about to go on a long and boring rant.
It's correct, but I'll make it emotional and I'll yell and I'll try not to swear because it does end this tyranny of bureaucracy does end badly all too often,
No, it does. There's just bureaucrats who like, well, technically you had to do this. Technically it's our job. And just concerned citizens calling in.
Ends with chopping your squirrel's head off and checking it for rabies, bro.
Yeah. Well, it's coming right for him. It bit a police officer. What are you gonna do to face the consequences?
Lucky he didn't get blown away on the spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Euthanized a lot nicer than what they could have done. I guess. I don't know.
Wouldn't be the first pet to meet that fate.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. Well, on that note, cheery note, we're gonna go in and start doing the show. We're gonna start in 3, 2.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. And look, it's the most exciting day of the year. The aftermath of a huge election with, I mean,
woohoo.
I don't know. I'm pumped.
It certainly is over, probably. It seems like it's actually over.
It does seem like it's over.
Now, the tables have turned. When Congress has to approve the results of the election, Kamala Harris is going to be in the hot seat this time, deciding like, hey, we really going to accept those electors?
She gave a concession speech that was less repetitive than normal and kind of well crafted. So
she knows how to read from the teleprompter. It's fine.
Yeah, I go through phases where I feel very angry with our political system, and then where I see we get to this moment of let's all be classy. I think that Kamala was classy today. Like she was classy.
No, I'll say that. I was gonna like lean into making a bunch of jokes, and
we should,
but but and those will come. But yeah, like it is like the small bit of patriotism that I know you and I have occasionally are like, hey, look, she was classy in conceding.
Mhm.
Hopefully what happens is that like it remains that way, up through the peaceful transfer of power, and
Mhm.
that is a good thing. That is something that a lot of other countries throughout history never got. That the only way power changed hands was through like actual violence. Like you'd
Yeah.
have to fight a war for whoever's going to rule you next. And a bunch of people would die along the way just for another brutal government to be in power. And in this case, presumably, there will be a peaceful transfer of power. The Democratic Republic works, and we will probably, presumably, have another election in
Yeah.
2026 and 2028.
That's one of the reasons why I'm in favor of a disinterested monarch. They're very easy to access when it's time
You
to
you,
change
you want to
power.
end the peaceful
Yeah.
transfer of power because
I
then
mean, if
because the
it
monarchs you gotta end with either like someone's got to die.
yeah.
Like that's someone's got to either like just die of old age because they've been there forever or like get beheaded. Um, that's a really bad way to go. Like
Sure.
like the French
Sure.
Revolution way, usually not great. Like
I
the
I can I accept that there's probably valid criticisms of my position, Kevin. Uh, and I concede
there
your
might
point.
be there
Yeah,
might
I
be.
concede the point.
Now, I mean, listen, maybe, and again, there's a bunch of people like this is the last election ever. Donald Trump, he's going to take power. I named the show, and we'll see if we get, angry new visitors this time too. Like the
Yeah.
end of see as we know it
Yeah. Oh god,
is
that
what
was
I
great.
named this show.
That was
uh,
great. Yeah, a couple weeks ago, we had some great angry people who, when we were, what? It was fun. They were so mad.
that was fun. Hopefully, a few of them come back and
Yeah,
watch the show some more. But yeah, no, I mean, like, there's a bunch of people who are like, "Oh man, Trump might end democracy." I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be a bunch of bad, destructive policies that are going to be different from the bad, destructive policies that Kamala Harris would have done.
yeah,
And we're going to talk about those, like my hopes and my fears for the Trump administration and what might happen.
yeah.
Um,
There,
and I see also we have an active crowd tonight. We got Ryan Bedford out there. What's happening, fam? On Facebook, Brian
it,
Lutz also on.
coming in for we got a couple comments in from Facebook. I don't think X
Yeah.
should want to be outdone by this. They've got to
No,
get in
yeah.
the game here.
X, get on it. Usually X is quite active as well. Brian Lucia says gonna say it's the best speech during your entire campaign was the concession speech. All right, man.
It was pretty good. Like, honestly, like in fair analysis, she did a nice job in the debate. She did a nice job. Well, other than that, the
Yeah.
debate she executed pretty well,
Yeah,
and her concession speech was pretty good. But every other interview, people were able to find something to latch onto that was just like, oh my God, she's talking in word salad. Even Vanderbilt
awkward,
Cooper, yeah,
clueless. Yeah, it was
yeah,
just
even Vanderbilt Cooper of CNN was like, I don't know why she got so word salady on me there, and she
yeah.
did this thing of saying like a fifth grader trying to write a longer essay of repeating a word in 4 different ways with new synonyms each time
Yeah. Well, you
to
got to
make
get to that one page length,
yeah.
right? And so, like just fill it.
Yep. I need 200. I need 200 words. I need 200
I'm in
words.
college. I
Kevin.
was told to fill the little blue book, and darn it, I'm going to fill the little blue book.
Yeah, that's right. So
So yeah, so knowing that, like, this wasn't a new thing for Kamala Harris. Like, this was a thing she's been doing for years. It was a thing she did in the 2020 primary, and there's a reason why she dropped out before there's any voting.
yes.
So I'm just saying, like, there's a chance, Democrats, that maybe it hurt you not to have a competitive primary process here, like that you might have. Maybe open up the primary when people already knew there's issues with Joe Biden at the beginning of this year, or, even do a quick competitive primary after Joe Biden dropped out, because perhaps.
Right. So that's arguably about money, right? Because if she didn't succeed Joe Biden because she was the named successor on the petitioning, right? If she didn't succeed him, that money was then withdrawn and went back to the donors to keep the money that they had, the hundreds of millions of dollars that they had amassed for a Joe Biden campaign would not have been able to go directly to the next candidate. The next candidate would have had to raise that money on their own. It's a horrible, awful system. I do hope
I
Yet
think she would have been
again,
all right. She raised a ton of money after she officially locked down the nomination.
sure,
Um,
sure.
I don't
So
know. It's just
Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi's son, like or nephew, could have probably raked in some cash. He has Pelosi access money, so he
yeah,
could have probably. And look,
he's
whew,
he's ready to go.
will so this is the good question, and will Democrats ever wake up to the notion that the DNC does not treat them like that they're important, like that
Yeah.
their opinion matters, that at the end of the day they give a crap about what everyday people out in the streets who show up to vote for a freaking primary, like, does the DNC care about them at all? Because to me it looks like no. It looked like no in 2016 when Wasserman Schultz was the face of the Democratic Party, explained to everybody the super delegate process, and everybody was like, that sounds a lot like you guys are just gonna pick who we get. And she's like, yeah, that's how it works. Like, and it was like,
Let's go back to the party boss days.
oh, it was the party boss days.
Yeah.
It just was like they weren't as aggressive about it. They fancied up the words and they equivocated a little bit, but they absolutely denied Bernie access to the democratic process, and people were on fire for him in 2016. This is a real event that got swept under the rugs. One more reason why, if we can destroy the mainstream media, Kevin, and if Donald Trump achieves destroying the mainstream media, the
Well,
world is
all right.
automatically going to be a better place.
So we're back on the theme of the end of democracy as we know it. What
It is.
what does it mean to you for Trump to destroy the mainstream media?
Oh, okay. So I've been hammering him and the senators and all these guys. It's like it's time to end licensing of mainstream media and just open the airways to everyone. Like, that's the most libertarian solution I could come up with. If you don't have a right to station number 3 anymore, you have to fight it out in the arena of ideas. Like, it
What-
will now be CBS and ABC and TMO and Kevin Wilson's channel, and my God, that could
Okay,
save
so
democracy. It's a
so a couple
libertarian solution.
things on that. Like,
Yeah.
I like the energy,
Mhm.
but there does need to be some like breakdown of the airwaves, right?
Why?
Because okay, so okay, Tim. First of
have
all,
an
we're on a radio station, right? Like, and
That's
this
true.
is also out over the internet. But WYSL. So imagine, so they are on, a couple different frequencies. 11. Gosh, I better get it right. They're on 1040 AM. I almost said.
Oh, WSL, yeah, 1040.
1040 AM, and I think and a couple other FM frequencies, 92.1. And I better get this right because it's going to go out over the air. But if other stations were broadcasting on the same frequency in the 921 and 95.5, that was the other one. Man, I almost forgot that one. So if someone's broadcasting on 921 in that same area, you get interference and not be able to hear WYSL. So what they do with radio stations is they basically, okay, you have a right to broadcast in like roughly this area, and you get exclusive like right to broadcast on this frequency in this area. So like people can actually listen to your station. And then you get like guerrilla radio stations that will like try to broadcast on certain frequencies to like overcome the signal, right? Like that's when that happens. And you're saying we should do that with all the airwaves, with the television airwaves, just like, yeah, anarchy, whatever. You want to broadcast like channel 3, like go ahead.
Yeah, no, I understand the logistical problems with my idea. But I still like the concept of that you can't threaten to take their license if there is no license plan. All right. You can't threaten to abridge their speech, but also we're issuing licenses, and the issuance of licenses is in fact an abridgment of free speech. Like,
No, yeah. Well,
so
like,
it's
yeah, I
it's
mean,
this
what it is the
catch-22 kind of
FCC
thing.
saying like you have a right to exclusively control this chunk of like the radio frequency bandwidth. Now there might be, I mean, this is gonna like go down the rabbit hole, but it's like there might be better ways to like auction that off like more like equitably and
Mhm.
like without like kind of like regional monopolies and political players like being able to like influence
Yeah.
in certain ways. But
Sure.
chances are that like your local, like WKTV out there is probably going to keep the same frequency that it has, being able to put stuff out over the airwaves. That's a Utica station, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yep. I still
Our
remember
friend,
I'm from the area. I know.
yeah, our friend Brian LaRusso, who's out in the audience, did in fact make news on WKTV News, and that was awesome. I did a whole live show explaining. Brian and I did explaining what the whole real story is. So, but yeah, so I understand there's an interesting conundrum there, and how do we control access, and how do we get everybody to behave in such a way as it remains coherent? But it's already not coherent. So
No, I mean, it's not, like, I don't like, Trump going around like, oh, I think we should pull the license for, CBS because the 60 Minutes wasn't fair to me. Like, no, that's not how that should be used. If we're going the direction you're going, it's like, okay, how do we make sure people can still broadcast without like President Trump trying to like, pull people off the air because he's grouchy about something one day.
I
Should
know.
be able to do that now. And again, and I'll say, like, I know someone's out there like, didn't Joe Biden try to like, browbeat social media or jawbone social media and Spotify? Remember when he was trying to jawbone Spotify to take off the Joe Rogan stuff?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He
ridiculous.
was great.
Which is, there might have been something that might have influenced Joe Rogan to endorse Donald Trump. That might have been one of those things that was rattling around in his head.
Well,
he endorsed the guy.
I mean, I'd give you the rundown, right? Like, there was absolutely a fair offer made to Kamala Harris to come on the Joe Rogan podcast, that he's like, whatever you need, however you want to do it, it's got to happen here. That's it. And then there was, all right, let's not do the Joe Rogan podcast and try to make Joe Rogan look like a bad guy. And the mainstream media kind of fell in line and tried to find ways to criticize him and be like, well, she is the vice president and she is campaigning. The least you could do is come to Washington for her, despite the fact that she went to Call Her Daddy and the Shannon Sharp show and all of these other things.
Yeah,
and then managed a quick stop at Saturday Night Live, which was kind of also created some kind of epicness. Kevin, did you catch that? The FCC freaked out at Saturday Night Live for saying you can't just have.
So one guy in the FCC, and also I think the fair time rule is dumb.
Yeah, I agree. Like, sure, that's a little bit absurd. Her appearance didn't help her.
No, not at all. And there's a good chunk of the show that was making fun of Democrats. It's actually pretty funny. I shared a clip. So if you guys follow me on Twitter at Kevin Wilson RFC, I shared a clip of Saturday Night Live making fun of Democrats, talking about how this is the most important election ever, and they dragged out Tim Kaine, who Hillary Clinton's running mate. And like, they're like, okay, for $300,000, what is my name? You said it was the most important election ever when you voted for me. What's my name?
Did anybody know?
No, it was a joke.
Yeah, I get it. No, I got it. I was going with it. Yeah. So there are a lot of interesting dynamics about this election that I'd like to kind of get your take on and get some of the audience member takes on. Like, the turnout was interestingly low.
Yeah.
For it to be the most important election of our lifetime. And what do you think some of the dynamics are? What is it?
Election, I mean, like, I was looking. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I was looking at it earlier, and like between 2020 and 2024, Trump lost like millions of votes, but like Kamala Harris got like 14 million votes or something fewer than Joe Biden. Like, just abysmal. Like, people just did not want to show up. And I think a big part of that reason is like they're just like, nope, I don't like either of them, so just gonna not vote today.
One of the things that I'd like it to be, Kevin, and you know that I'm very anti-identity politics and very pro-class politics. So I think that I really believe that Donald Trump did a better job appealing to a class of people, whereas the whole Democratic strategy looked like, let's break people up by identity and pretend like we're the best answer for their particular identity every step of the way. And then let's round up some white guys and get them to endorse.
White guys,
like, I eat carburetors for breakfast. That guy, guy's my hero.
So much cringe. It's amazing. So what's funny is like, I think like Kamala Harris like sort of like started walking away from that a bit. Like, she would stop like she would stop emphasizing like her identity all the time because I think they started to figure out that it wasn't working. But
Yeah.
like the rest of the Democratic establishment didn't get that, and that's why they're gnashing their teeth today. Like, oh no, she could never win because she was like a woman of color. I'm like, no, that's not
She was-
it. That's not it, folks. Like, it's not because everyone just looked at her like, nope, I won't vote for a brown woman. They looked at her and like, she keeps showing me ads that talk about how she's going to stop price gouging and how, you know, she's going to spend more of our money and not really get things under control. And that doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
Whereas Donald Trump is talking to me about like being able to pay my rent. And, you know, now does he actually have a plan to do that effect? No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
But and he's talking about like, oh, I'm going to fix the serious problem at the border. Is he actually going to fix it? Who knows? Probably not. But, who knows?
Arguably, that's not my favorite. His take so far on there is where I've got to talk about, as always, the problems with immigration and the human rights violations that we experience with it. Okay, it's the real issues. Like, I don't like incentivizing immigration. It looks like indentured servitude and slavery to me. But worse than that, there are people that spend thousands and thousands of dollars to come here for a job with a company, and they automatically become illegal aliens the day their visa expires, and we ignore that, and then they get sent home, Kevin, to renew their visa paperwork, and they can't come back to a job that they've had for years. So it hurts businesses, it hurts communities, it hurts individuals, and it gets lost in the shuffle of everybody getting caught up in arguing over deliberate manipulations of immigration policy by the government. And I hate the government.
100%. And the thing is, like, Kamala didn't have a good plan to fix that. The Biden administration was terrible on that stuff too. They kept all the bureaucratic nightmare in place that Trump helped build up. Now Trump, on the other hand, is like, okay, is he going to go the Stephen Miller route, where like everyone gets deported, including people who've gotten citizenship, or is he going to be like the Trump who was talking on the Tech Business podcast, where he's like, yeah, everyone who graduates with even an associate degree, you get a green card.
That
cool.
sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan, actually. But which Trump are we going to get? Who knows? I don't know. Is it deport everyone or give everyone a green card?
I do think that I think he loses control of his rhetoric and for almost for comedic timing, and so there is a certain level of incoherency to his message that, while hilarious, Kevin, could feel slightly dangerous to certain people who want a predictable society. Sure, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an accelerationist and you want an unpredictable society, that's Trump's going to be a great president for you. All right. On that note, though, we have to head to our first break. Thanks again for joining us here on Free Solution on WYSL. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
All right. I gotta grab another beverage. I'll be right. It will take me 35 seconds at the most.
All right, count it. All right. So in the meantime, folks, like, as Tim is coming back, put in the comments what you think happened in the election, what the consequences are going to be. We're going to start reading off some of those on air, but like, what do you think went wrong for the Democrats, or what went right for Donald Trump? And then what do you think is going to happen to the parties, and what's going to happen to the Libertarian Party too? We're going to talk a little bit about the Libertarian Party in the next segment, but where do Democrats go from here? And are they going to, moderate? Are they going to go full Bernie? Are they going to go full, like, full on lefty communist? We'll see what happens. So Tim, I was just saying, I'm soliciting comments for people to predict what's going to happen next with the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and the Libertarian Party. And we're going to talk about that the next segment.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah, that's good. I have like your thoughts, just to warm me up to the thought, like your thoughts of, they did well enough to maintain the exact same game plan that they've had moving forward. Well, I think the theory was that they're both going to do, from a discussion we had not that long ago, that they're both going to do well enough to maintain their current messaging.
Right. Yeah. So I actually think that the Democrats might have lost bad enough where they're going to pivot. I don't know what direction they're going to pivot.
Whew.
But we are sure going to speculate on that.
Yeah, we are. I would offer some good conjecture about that. That's for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, Joe, very negative on Kamala Harris. So welcome back to the show, Joe. I do not understand how anyone with working neuron in their brain could vote for Kamala Harris. And he says Donald Trump won because he was more qualified to be president and much more likable than Kamala. Harris did a horrible job talking about policy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna kind of agree with that. That she was.
She wasn't great talking about policy.
There were times she came.
But she had a few good moments, right? Like especially like her scripted moments. She would do that. Like if she had to go off the cuff, like she kind of meander a bit. I mean, so is Trump too. But like people expected that of Trump. Like he's got the weave. He's got the weave.
That's what I was gonna say. He's got a name for it, and yes. So he has a name for it, and he has
it's
no
at least
sense
funnier
of it.
when he's rambling.
Right, and there's no sense of it being scripted with him. Like there's no sense of like almost with Kamala's attempts at weaving, it felt like she was like scripting it ahead of time, or she had practiced this particular answer, and now she's just trying to make sure she fills up the space long enough with enough words to get to the point of I came from a middle class family or something.
Right. Yeah, right.
You know,
There's the week where that was the talking point.
Yeah, I mean, every answer to every question was, well, I came from a middle class family, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, the current governing system is destroying the middle class, so I think I don't know what to say to that. I don't know how to respond to that. So, anyways, all right. So I like our next segment. That's going to be good.
Yeah. So we'll figure out where the parties are going to go next.
Oh, look at Ryan's comment though. This is pretty classic because we concentrate on fun here. Trump is proof that McAfee was a rambling, weaving kind of, like yes, if he wasn't executed, but yes, since the world no longer has him, but Trump is proof that McAfee could have increased his political success.
He was entertaining. I said I had the lunch with him one time at the New York Libertarian Convention.
That's great.
That weird, kind of terrifying guy. But
was he a drinker?
If he was, I didn't notice him there. He wasn't like drinking there. Although he did say that he and sorry for folks, I'll have to put a warning in the podcast. After the New York State Convention, he hated it so much that he said that he was going to go take up he'd rather take up recreational whale fucking.
God bless him.
Yeah, he was not a fan of the New York State Libertarian Convention. He just really hated it.
Well, I mean, having been to 2 or 3, I'm not saying that I'm going to all of a sudden start go fucking whales, but I understand the vibe.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can find the exact quote, but yeah, he's just really hated it. All right.
I mean, you make me, the way you're coughing, you make me want to quit smoking, Kevin.
Yeah. It's all right. I probably just have a sinus infection. No big deal.
All right.
But, all right. We'll go back in 5 seconds. 4, 3. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm still here, Kevin. And as we were talking about in the last segment, this is the most exciting, the most important conclusion to an election in our lifetimes, as I see it. Or it's something entirely different than that.
Or not. Or maybe nothing.
Or maybe just another continuation of we're going to solve everything through devaluation, and that's going to be that.
Yeah. Now, so what we did one time, we started soliciting some of these comments during the break. We'll see where it goes. But I want to talk about like the direction the parties are going to go from here. Because we had talked about last week, like kind of one of my hopes was that one side won big enough that it would force the party to change. Right.
All right.
So like my hope was, okay, if the Republicans lose really badly, they're going to move away from like the nationalism and populism stuff. And hopefully more towards the libertarian position. I don't know if that would happen, but
right.
And same with like, I think the Libertarian Party would have to kind of move away from that stuff too. that I don't particularly like. On the flip side, if the Democrats lose, hopefully they would move away from like the identity politics, some of their like negative culture war issues, some of their populist stances, like the the price fixing stuff, the rent control stuff, which did terrible. Like California had a rent control ballot prop that got crushed. In California of all places,
Of all places, you would think
rejected.
it would fly right through right there.
Yeah, no, they're starting to realize, rent control is bad. This is why San Francisco's housing situation is screwed up. Kamala Harris is trying to bring that to a national level, and I think a lot of people correctly recognize this would be bad if she was successful in implementing that policy. Now, again, I don't know that most voters are really thinking that far ahead. It's probably just mostly vibes.
Mhm.
Things feel bad right now. Vote for the different guy, but who knows?
Yeah, yeah. We do have a comment out there that we neglected to talk about, and that does point
Wow.
to our friend John Thuman out on YouTube says she had one task and she chose Walsh over Shapiro. I do think that well, it looks like it wouldn't have been a deciding factor.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
could have flipped the situation of her getting Pennsylvania and Trump winning the popular vote. So that could have actually
could
been
have happened.
pretty interesting. That could have
has
really, that would
A
have
little
been interesting.
excitement.
That's why I wanted to kind of mull that comment over. Thanks, John.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Walz, he won it.
He was great for an assistant coach, for a guy that, had his cops marching up and down the street with paintball guns during the COVID lockdown. He was great. He was great. He was exactly the right
He
guy.
won Minnesota. They must have loved it there.
And he won Minnesota late, Kevin, because it was like right down to the wire. It was.
I think it was a little bit closer than they were hoping.
Yeah, I think so. It was
they
neck
did win
and
it,
neck
though.
in Minnesota, but he did in fact win it.
Yeah. No. So, but what I hope is okay. Yeah, maybe they could have chose Shapiro, who I thought was like he was interesting. He was moderate. And maybe he would have. Who knows what would have happened if he was a ticket? But I think he was kind of too exciting. He would have overpowered the ticket. But he's probably someone who's going to be up there next time. Yeah. So it's going to be Newsom. It's going to be Shapiro. It's I don't know. It's going to be some like one of like the far lefty folks. Not Bernie. I think he's probably going to be too old by that point. But
yeah,
maybe not. But
who knows?
But maybe like one of the squad folks.
Oof, that AOC.
She's probably. I don't think she would run yet. I think like she's probably going to hang out in the House or try for like a Senate seat or something eventually.
So I've got an interesting. Our friend Jared Anderson put up a comment out there from Facebook. Do you think it was the economy or woke politics that lost it for the Dems? One thing I want to point out is with the Democrats, they're stuck in a position of being so excited about things like climate change that AOC cannot celebrate the fact that it's 70 degrees in November. And she has to whine about that. She's like, oh my God, it's 70 degrees in November. Please go vote. And it's like, so I think
beautiful. Yeah, it was like a beautiful election day, a beautiful Halloween, normal people are just like, shut up. So I want to enjoy the sunshine. Like I know like global warming is a problem, but one warm day is not necessarily proof of something bad happening. So like just quiet. I mean, sick of being like, browbeat on that stuff. I get it.
Yeah, so it's I do think it's some of that the Democrats suppressed their own vote, right? So in my opinion, with this nonstop emotional narrative of hating male children, okay? Like this constant narrative of making them feel like second-class citizens. There are Democrats that have male children that they like. You know what I mean?
Valued white guys for Harris, right? Like that was an important part of the coalition.
And what an absurdity that was. Like it was so fake. It was so manufactured. And it's not like they couldn't make that point that white guys can vote for Democrats without being so pejorative and so like absurd.
No, yeah, like the the woke politics element of it, like it's exhausting to most people because like most people are like they're sort of like you and me. We're like, man, like we get their problems out there, but it's not man, like you run every single thing through the identity politics lens. It's like exhausting. It's, like it just it puts people into like stereotypes. It reinforces like some negative stereotypes in a lot of ways too. And that's why like you probably saw some shift because like they kept saying like over and over again, oh, like, we've got to do this. We've got to do this to help women. We've got to do this to help, black men. We've got to do this to help the Latinos. And like those groups lost support with Kamala Harris. They're just like, man, quit like white knighting for us. Like quit.
Black men did not get excited about the $20,000 and the right to smoke weed. Like they were like, you know what? I don't know that that's a good deal. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of like complicated policies, and like we are individuals who care about like the outcome of good policy too. Like, don't just like put us into a little box and like try to bribe us. Like, there's a bunch of people who are like that. Like, no, this is demeaning. This is patronizing.
And thank God for that, because I think that sometimes a mind virus kind of grabs people, right? And you could, I couldn't, I thought it was so insulting and so demeaning and so like benevolently racist that I couldn't believe
Yeah.
it was not just a massive outrage, but it was outrageous enough that I found hope in it. Like people were like, this is not okay.
Yeah, but yeah, there are a few people like are starting to be like, all right, like, can you just like talk to us like adults, like because we have the same problems with like rent and like trying to get a house one day and making sure our children can pay for daycare and go to school and
Right.
start a business. Like it's the same things that everyone else cares about. And yeah, like there's these other issues, but like it doesn't always have to be patronizing. And like like with the left wing media always puts everything through like this identity politics lens, and like that, a lot of people are just done with it. Like we've passed peak woke, and like I think a lot of like the most annoying folks on that side have gone away. And again, I've seen this, I've talked about this, like how like a lot of neoliberals on the Democrat side, I enjoy listening to them because they're like, okay, can we talk about the economic issues that like all these people also care about? Like, yes, we recognize like some problems affect people uniquely, but like we don't have to dwell on it, on the skin color thing, on like the gender thing every single time. It doesn't always have to be that way.
It doesn't have to be the go-to, right? And so I would like to see a Democratic Party that shifts away from that. Look, I want both parties to be class warfare parties, and I want the class warfare to come
We
down
don't have to
to.
do class warfare, Tim. We
No,
don't
I
have to
do.
do that.
I no, I
No.
no, I don't think I'm phrasing it in a way that's palatable yet. But let me explain it
All
like
right,
this.
tell us more, comrade.
I want. That's fair because of the way I'm phrasing it. It's fair, but I want them to be aware that the middle class feels like it's under pressure, and that the middle class is not just white people or Mexican people or black people. That it's a class issue that they bear the brunt. The and look, fixed incomes. We'll go into that in a second, but the middle class bears the brunt of getting up and going to work every day and watching their dollar devalue. Okay. It doesn't matter what your skin color is, as if your $100 buys 5 tubs of coffee this week and only 3 tubs of coffee next week. Okay. So, which just as a simplistic example, Kevin.
Yeah, Tim's buying a bunch of coffee every week.
I am
Yeah,
very
Tim,
upset
like-
about the price of coffee. I got to be honest, because I do
I mean,
drink a lot of it.
No, so I go to Costco and I get the giant things of coffee, and sometimes
Nice.
it's like one week you'll be like, oh, cool, it's like $10 for this, and this is gonna last me a month. Another time's like, it's like $18 now. What happens?
Right. So those are real issues that I would like to see the political class deal with sound money. Unfortunately, I think what both political classes and both sides of the politics agree on is that the only way out of this mess is through devaluation. And that's what we're going to get. I don't know if you know this,
Yeah,
but Bitcoin hit like $75,000 today.
All right, time to buy.
76,000.
Time to buy.
It's time to buy, guys. I said it. It's going up. It's going to the roof, baby. Again, this isn't financial advice, but I am tempted to buy more right now.
Yeah, just load up.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, and everyone else. The moment Tim actually gets serious and buys stuff, that's when you know you need to get out. Like, just run.
Hold up. I actually bought Trump futures on my Robinhood app, and I doubled my money. Like that
Wow.
never happens. Last year, I
Good for
thought I
you.
doubled my money and I went to sleep. And I woke up and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Because I didn't check the news, right? I checked my predicted app, and that not last year, but 4 years ago. And I went to sleep and I'm like, yes, this is going all the way to $1. And I woke up and it was all the way at 0. And I'm like, that seems unfair. That injustice,
Wow.
Kevin. So
Wow.
I don't know.
All right. So I feel like he's gonna make some other point in there somewhere. We got on a
There's
tangent.
got to be another point
Yeah,
there.
there's no. So well, anyway, here's my hope for the Democratic Party. I'll say this is that I hope they move away from some of the woke politics a little bit. I hope they focus more on like if they could focus more on like the what they call like the abundance agenda stuff, where they say okay, and I'm going to disagree with them on spending the money, but the folks who are saying if we're going to spend a bunch of money, we need to make sure it actually does something and it works.
Mhm.
Like if we're going to spend a bunch of money like on high speed rail, my God, we better be building high speed rail, not creating a dozen jobs. Looking at you, California high speed rail.
Woo!
Um,
They have like
and
10 yards of it in the ground already, and
basically
they're out like $150 billion. It's the most
probably
amazing
dozens
boondoggle
of yards
ever.
by now, Tim.
Yeah,
Dozens.
it's the most amazing boondoggle in the history of boondoggles. What it and look, I get into this the Simpsons monorail salesman when people start talking about high speed rail. It's practically, in my mind, an archaic technology when what we really need is flying individual cars
There
that
we go.
like
Tim, I know where this rant goes, and we got only like 2 minutes left. So I'll just say like that my hope is that Democrats start doing like the permitting reform stuff. They get serious about that. Republicans work with them on it. The NEPA reform, and they work on like actually allowing people to build more housing, like that type of stuff. It's going to be popular. Like people are going to like
Sure.
it. A lot of it's going to happen locally too. But if they can do that, like and show that they can actually accomplish something with like their governance ability and not just use their like position to like lecture us, they'll probably do a bit better.
Look, there was
Lecture us and set our money on fire.
yeah, there was kind of a broad-based agreement that certain reforms as far as building things has to happen from
Mhm.
both parties this election cycle, and so that was something that
I hope
does
it
in
happens.
fact,
And
as
I
a
hope people like
libertarian pragmatist, that's something that gives me hope, right? They
yeah,
both
like I hope
shifted.
like there's people like Elon Musk who are like, hey, it should be easier to like build stuff and build new factories and like do the cool like rocket stuff, like without like the state of California like shutting them down basically for political reasons,
Oh my God, yeah.
which is ridiculous. Again, like if there's a legit reason to not do a project, I get it, but like most of the time, it's just man, decades and decades and millions of dollars, and it prevents like humanity from doing cool things, scientific advances, and just having like more infrastructure to make our lives like better. And part of it's just like the machinery of government getting gummed up. So if they can fix that, if they can lead the charge on that,
Yeah.
that's where I hope they go. Or they go full communist and like
Yeah.
they lean into all that stuff.
You
Who
say
knows?
gummed up and I say corrupted. It's
Corrupted. No, that's
yeah,
what that's what it is.
yeah, okay, good. Whew, I was afraid
Like
we didn't
it's
agree.
yeah. No, I think it's like corrupted. It's like, yeah, we won't get into it because we are actually out of time now. But thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're gonna be back with one more segment in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
All right, Ryan Bedford's got a deep ass question. I don't know if we should save it for the show, but Yuri Bezmenov has some comments on this. I don't know if you've ever heard of any his speech that he gave. That he's absolutely like, yes, there is an agenda. Yes.
So Tim, let's start. The people listening to the podcast do not know what this comment is.
Oh, that's right. I forget about that.
So Ryan Bedford on Facebook says, "Do you think socialists from other countries are planning to here for life and infiltrate our local societies to sway public opinion, like the movie Salt or the Prime original series?" Or I mean, like I think of like this is slightly different, but like The Americans, right? But
Right.
which is a great series. If you haven't watched it, that's like Russian spies embedded in American life. But
Okay.
so that was fun. So you so go on. Tell me what you're talking about.
All right. So certainly, like Yuri Bezmenov put out this theory that there is in fact a long-term agenda that the Soviets had, and that it is being continued on in the Russian KGB to use communist appeal, because you can always find people that like the concept of communism, to infiltrate your societies, get them placed in high-level offices, and have them disrupt everything. And I do find an appeal to that notion that that strategy has been successful on some levels, that we have so many conflicting strategies, so many strange game plans. Like when I look at the Department of Education and I look at the focus on emotional education of our children, it's like, who would have come up with that other than people that want to disrupt your society, I so it has appeal, obviously. I'm a
Right.
conspiracy theorist, and it certainly does make sense on some level.
So a couple points on that, and yeah, it's a bit conspiratorial, but like there's a little bit of that was attempted, like that's documented. Like the Soviet Union did try to get people in high up positions, and they tried to cultivate relationships with intellectuals and build communist like party membership. I mean, if you saw like the movie Oppenheimer, like that was like part of like the conflict of the plot was they're trying to get him on being a card carrying communist party member,
Yeah.
and like other people, but that like it really was a thing, like, and there's like connections in discussion with like Soviet Union operatives and stuff like that. So it's not super far-fetched. Now, do I think like that's like an active thing? Well, I think it's an active thing, not in the sense that the whole KGB is still pulling the strings or anything. I think it's just they're intellectuals who like get caught up in these incredibly bad ideas and try to act on them by influencing others where they can, right? Like it's not really conspiracy, it's just
Sure.
people trying to act on their own ideologies wherever they can do it. And the
Okay.
best way to combat that is, again, mostly just like education and calling people out on their ridiculous murderous ideologies when they try to use those positions to influence others, particularly in education and in other environments.
I think it gets hard because we look at this. You guys like me and you and Ryan and Jared and so many people, like Kevin, you lean slightly left, I lean slightly right. So many people see these things that they present us as absurd, like, and they double down, and it's then gets funded by the government, and it's like, so it's hard for me to just be like, well, okay, yeah, let's
No,
confront
I
them
mean,
when they get funded for stupid studies that back
they,
up ridiculous
they do
premises.
that. I mean, like, do you remember like woke kindergarten? Remember that? That was a thing. Like, I mean, it'd be hilarious, but like, they're using up valuable school time to like to do this stuff. So like, yeah, like, and some of that stuff it's worth being mad about. I get it. Like, I have no idea how organized it is. Although, I could say like libertarians are constantly trying to do that too. We're trying to like, influence people wherever we can by encouraging people to homeschool. We're encouraging people to like, go into schools that are, education friendly, by winning offices so we can like gather power and then leave everyone alone. So like it's like
Exactly.
to me it's like, yeah, those people are out there doing that thing, but also like that is the political process, and it's incumbent on us as participants in that political process to try to like win, right? Like that's
There
that's
is
what it is at the end of the day.
that does get into the perverse incentives. Our friend Shelley Schultz out there says, "Who was the Russian czar who said that he didn't need to attack us; they would just send drugs to our children?" I believe that's. I'm not sure who said it, but it does seem to be the
Yeah.
concept behind communism is that they can pervert our freedom with our freedom, right?
I mean, that's always a worry. It's like, okay, we talk about the fifth column thing, or they can like corrupt us with our freedom. Like that's the worry behind like TikTok and why there's TikTok ban. Like, oh no, like the Chinese version of ByteDance is all like educational stuff, and Americans is all just stupid dances, and like they'll be able to flip a switch and like turn, change American opinion and like that. I
It's
mean,
not quite
okay,
as easy as that, but they can certainly create inroads with really bad ideas that seem to persevere for years, that you just think like, this is obviously a bad idea.
so
Again, just for
okay, so
example,
like
because we're on like identity politics,
I'll throw a counterexample. Do you think that the Russian influence campaign of 2016 made an impact?
no, it was no. I mean,
So why is it different?
The accusations of the Russian influence campaign has now put us on the brink of World War III, though, which is it. You don't think so? You don't think that?
No, I mean,
look,
no, like,
I grew up in
you-
a time, Kevin, in this, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but in the 70s, we were terrified of Russia. The Soviets were going to bomb us every single day. Then at some point, after Reagan, post Reagan, during Reagan, the ice between us melted. The world felt safer. Okay. We were no longer in a perpetual state of fear and war with Russia. And then that was reinvented for these younger kids back in 2016. So
I mean, Russia also invaded Ukraine in 2014 and Georgia and messed with Moldova, and like they've done some stuff to tarnish their reputation. But my point, going back to the original conversation, my point is that I put those two things on the same level of like, oh, the Chinese or the communists are trying to influence us, or the Russians are trying to influence us. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I mean, you can either say, yes, we take all of that seriously and we should shut it down anytime like they're trying to do that. Or you can say the important thing to do is for Americans to like exercise media literacy. That's important for us to understand when we're being propagandized into like find ways to build up our immunity to that. Like, when we know like we're getting served foreign propaganda, nonsense, like we need to be able to spot it, recognize it, and pick it apart.
Well,
and
so
like that's what education should be doing.
Sure.
Now,
and
not,
so we should be like immune to pro-propaganda, pro-Russian propaganda, and we should be immune to anti-Russian propaganda. Like that's where
that's
I'm
fair.
at, that
That's
I
fair.
think
Like,
is
you should be able
more
to
important.
analyze those arguments and know when it's like, okay, here's a bunch of like, this is a weird pro-Russian RT thing, and then here's like a frothing at the mouth neocon thing that's like calling for war, and like, you should be able to pick apart both of those and understand why both might be
And if
bad.
it comes out of and as a word of advice, if it comes out of Bill Kristol's mouth, it is absurd. Don't listen to a word of it. That guy is got a war fetish and he's a disgusting human being. That's not propaganda. That's a fact.
Ryan's making fun of you.
That's right. No, he agrees, man. We would have look, we're never going to get to Star Trek without like flying things. That's it. He's right.
Yeah. All right. Yes. If not for government intervention, we'd have teleporting by now. Tim O'Connor.
Mm-hmm. Arguably something similar.
Something like that. All right. I think we should get back to the final segment of the show. Maybe we'll speculate in Libertarian Party stuff quickly, and then we're going to talk about Peanut.
We got to talk about Peanut and Fred.
Yeah.
Everybody
and
forgets
Fred.
about Fred.
Yeah, I know. We can't forget Fred either. Fred the raccoon. So we got to do both. All right. So back in like 10 seconds. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, and I don't think we thanked the WYSL audience enough tonight for just listening to us, participating with our conversations, checking out our podcast when you get a chance. And once again, thank you to our friends on YouTube. Thank you to our friends on Facebook. And honestly, no thanks to the people on Twitter who haven't left a comment yet, but there's still 37 of you out there. So, like, hello, you got a few minutes.
The Twitter audience, the X audience tonight.
Yep, you've got a few minutes to make it right. But anyways, I am grateful for this opportunity to talk to people, this platform to speak to people for WYSL, helping Kevin and I spread a pragmatic sense of libertarianism, and having real conversations with real people. I think it's important. So anyways, to continue our real conversation, Kevin, what in the world is going to happen with the Libertarian Party after this?
I know. I think the Libertarian Party is kind of cooked, man.
We're gassed. It's over. Put a fork in it.
Yeah. And like, it brings me no joy to say that. I'm just, I don't know. Maybe it'll rebuild like it has before. I really hope Chase Oliver would have done better. I don't think it's just him, because I think a bunch of people like, oh man, like it's like he just wasn't a good enough candidate. Like, he was a good candidate in Georgia in that Senate election, but like in this election, like he didn't have the backing of the National Party leadership and all of its resources.
I agree.
That hurt. They backed Trump, and
They did.
yeah, like outright backed Trump. Just wow.
Yeah.
And
Um,
then also you had RFK in this race who I think split a bunch of the vote. That not that he's like exactly the same as libertarians, but there's a lot of libertarians who liked RFK, and some chose to protest vote for him,
sure.
despite him endorsing Trump. And so I think between lack of resources, lack of media coverage, lack of his own pre-existing name recognition. He wasn't a governor or anything, like Gary Johnson had that going for him. And then, just splitting the vote that hurt him. Like most of the states, he got like 0.5%.
Yeah. I do
was a
think
bummer.
that there was an effective attempt to persuade libertarians for their vote to get concessions that they've never had platformed before, like a promise to free Ross, to interact with Ron Paul on monetary policy, and to have like that was a huge
That's that's a game, again,
drive, bro, huge, and I loved it. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
To me, here's my take on all that stuff, right? Like, one, I don't think they're actually going to do a lot of it, but
right.
Let's set that aside for a second. Two, I wish the National Party had kind of stuck to their guns, because that's the threat, right? You just gotta say oh, we could still vote for our guy,
Right.
well, maybe we'll do it, or maybe we'll vote for you. We gotta try a little bit harder, right? Like that's the leverage to keep pushing for that stuff. But
Absolutely.
I'm not mad at Trump for playing that game, because that's what you do. That's sort of what libertarians want to happen. And we played that game in Monroe County too, where we're like, hey, you know what? We're gonna run our own people, but if you want our votes, earn them. Switch your positions. Advocate for the stuff that we care about, right? Or we're gonna get enough percentage of the vote that maybe you won't win this time. Maybe we'll split the difference, and that could have been the difference between you winning and not winning. So what do you say? Are you gonna maybe take some on some of our positions? Actually get something done on them. That's the hope. And again, so hopefully that's what Trump does. Maybe he really does take action on, charter school stuff and the Department of Education and income tax and freeing Ross and
our Department of Agriculture appointing a guy like Thomas Massey to that. Maybe lending some leverage to getting a guy like Rand Paul as Speaker of the Senate, the leader of the Senate. Something like that. Those things we would love, and that would be a legitimate victory for freedom and accountability. Now, look, this Ross Ulbricht thing is an atrocity. It's a human atrocity. A real pardon for Snowden. These things, an investigation into Duncan Lemp. You know what I mean? Like real things.
Would be great.
Breonna Taylor's law. Like these things would appeal to libertarians. Now, I know that he's going to disappoint us, but the flirting that he did with me was irresistible.
Tim, you're too easy.
Yeah, no, I know, right?
No, I mean, I don't dislike it. I hope that he follows through on some of the stuff that's good. I hope he fails to follow through on some of the stuff that's bad, like the tariffs and the mass deportations and stuff. But,
yeah, that's fine. I get it.
But but hopefully he follows through on stuff that's actually good. We'll see. So we'll switch topics quick. Because we did want to get to this today. Tell us what happened with Peanut and Fred. If you haven't heard the story, Tim, kind of go over it really quick for the WYSL audience.
Okay. TikTok star Peanut the squirrel was brutally murdered by New York State bureaucracy. And I used to be, even when I read Watership Down, I'm like, hey, we're turning rabbits into human beings. This is kind of weird, but it's a great way to tell a story. It's a great way to see the human interaction. So I was always kind of skeptical of this concept of anthropomorphizing animals to tell a story. But when it comes to the story of Peanut, what we get is a story of an unaccountable bureaucracy that overreacts and has protocols that it has to follow that will ultimately end in the death of an animal that is practically impossible for it to be infected with rabies because it's suspected of having rabies. And some limited amount of success was conveyed to the caretaker of this squirrel who was injured, found, like the mom was found like road killed and the baby was somewhat nearby. And the guy had raised it since it was a pup or a kit. I forget what
Yeah,
squirrels are, but
this kid.
let it go, tried to release it into the wild. It came back broken and hurt because it couldn't really find food and it did not interact well with other squirrels. And guys, I don't know if you know this or not, but squirrels are very territorial. Like black squirrels and gray squirrels fight. Gray squirrels have clans and they'll fight each other. They don't like chipmunks. Like this is a real thing. They're competing for space and they're competing for resources. So Peanut the squirrel had no real chance in the wild, but he did have a pretty good life and he was very entertaining. And like, I don't know if you
Right.
guys have seen any of his TikToks, but if you haven't, you should check them out because they're absolutely hilarious. The squirrel does wild, zany things that only squirrels can do while interacting with his caretaker. All right. And Fred, a raccoon who also cohabitated the same thing, the same house with the wife of the guy that was Peanut's caretaker. It was another animal that was rescued from injury and raised in an environment that allowed them to participate in the world as an animal, but also interact with humans, somewhat in a pet fashion, which I don't have a real problem with. Neither one of these kinds of animals are dangerous to humans. They're easily cared for.
Yeah.
They are tameable. Like Kevin, I know lots of people, my wife even, who when she was younger had a pet raccoon. Like this is not
No,
something that's
the raccoon, they're like they're not quite domesticated, but like they're they can be pretty close sometimes.
they're pretty chill with humans.
Yeah.
If you feed them, like if your local neighborhood raccoon, if you provide him food every day, he's going to be pretty cool to you. He might like wreck your dog one day just for the heck of it because like
Right.
there's a little competition going on there, but they're not generally going to hurt you. But I'm not
Smart, and they
saying
have
I'm
little
not.
hands.
Yes, they do have little hands and little banded eyes. It's kind of neat. But like, look, I'm not saying that is something you should do, and I'm not
No.
encouraging you to take on a raccoon as a pet because they are better off as wild animals. But they ran into two situations where they had this opportunity to interact with wildlife and make
Right.
animals' lives better.
And they were kind of like running like a wildlife sanctuary type of deal, right?
The monetary success from their TikTok ventures with showing these stories with these animals did allow them to open up a wildlife sanctuary, a
Yep.
permitted wildlife sanctuary. Now, some other kind of photography influencer from another state called the New York State DEC and complained that the animal might be unsupervised and rabid and interacting with humans. Um, there's a weird protocol, and I wish if Brian Relucer is still out there, perhaps he can explain. But there's this weird protocol if they get a certain style of report, our government agencies from another state with verifiable kind of weird information, that they have to react. I just recently had an interaction with the DC in New York where a deer had died and crawled under my mom's wood stove. She has an outdoor wood boiler. And I called them. I'm like, well, look, this is kind of weird. Is this something you want to send out a DC officer to check out? And they're like, probably got bumped by a car, drag it up into the woods unless you see 5 or 6 more dead deer on the ground. Then we want to know about it. And it's like,
Right.
So they're not worried about the chronic wasting disease unless there's evidence of it. They're like, most likely if it is a disease, it's not something you're going to catch from it. So go ahead and get it out of there. The coyotes are going to love it. That's literally the advice they gave me. But for some reason, because a girl from Texas calls about a squirrel cohabitating in a house with an owner and accuses it of having rabies, that brought 4 governmental agencies, including the DC and the DC police officers, to these people's houses. They detained them for 5 hours while they searched the house.
Ransacked the house.
They were looking for a bag of cash that they could steal and claim under asset forfeiture laws.
Yeah.
Because these guys appear to be rich. And look, maybe that's a crappy thing to say, but I'm not sure that it is.
No, I mean, like the way they're looking for stuff is like, yeah, like they took apart like the toilet and like
where's
took
the
apart
cash?
like all the drawers, like it's yeah.
Kevin, it really looked like where's the cash kind of thing, man. It really, really did. There was no reason for them to search every square inch of that house for what they had the squirrel in custody already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, so there were allegations of the squirrel biting one of the officers and
It's coming right for us.
Yep. By necessity. Yeah. Stop resisting. By necessity, they have to take the squirrel's head off to examine it for rabies.
Because that's how you test
oh,
for rabies. Is like you gotta take it off and do.
right. There are other tests that involve observing the animal for a few days and some blood
Yeah.
tests. And you can do that with the raccoons too. You can observe them and test their blood a couple different times and conclude either they have rabies or they don't have rabies. Rabies
Yeah.
is incredibly damaging to humans. It's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
A,
No,
re-
it's
a report could require a slight investigation. I'm like not adverse to the concept, but the protocol gets
well.
elevated, and
Yeah,
it becomes absurd.
it got way out of hand. And like
Yeah.
what they could have done is they could have just said like, "Oh, hey, we got this report, and like you might have had these unlicensed wild animals, and they might have been exhibiting strange behavior. We want to check it out. Okay, we see here's the squirrel and the raccoon here. Do you have a permit for this wildlife thing? No. Okay, well, you need to get this settled in 3 months, or like we're gonna come back and confiscate the animals. Whatever it is, like that's the reasonable thing to do. Like unless there's something comes out where like they really did have rabies, which I don't think they did. Squirrels
They
rarely get rabies.
very rarely, and you know
Yeah,
how many cases, Kevin? Check out how many cases there are of squirrels transmitting rabies to human beings.
how many?
0. It has
0.
never
Yeah, I don't
happened.
think
There's
it's
not
ever
one
happened yet.
recorded in all of recorded human history, not one recorded case of a squirrel giving rabies to it. Now, raccoons, on the other hand, are a vector. They
Yeah.
do experience rabies at a slightly higher rate, but squirrels, as a matter of fact, do not. Like, so.
Pretty rare. Yeah, Jared Anderson on Facebook says they could send a letter. Like, yeah, honestly,
they
like
could, yeah,
they could send a
right.
letter like, hey, we don't think you have this license, but we see that you have a TikTok with this squirrel. Please take care of that. Like, that's what that's what like reasonable people would do. Instead, like how did it get to the point of like escalating to this based on a complaint that came from half the country away? I don't know. It's pretty ridiculous. And I do want to make I am glad, not glad. I see people's outrage over this. It is an understandable outrage. But all the people who are mad about Peanut and mad about Fred, I want you to know that the government does this on a regular basis. And just quite often. Like in like sometimes it's just wild indifference, sometimes it's fear, right? Like there's a whole story I think we talked about on the show, because they did one of the local news stations did like an expose on how many dogs like the Rochester Police Department kills.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a lot of dogs who get shot. And a lot of them are like there's situations where like, oh, the dog was seeing what's going on because there's a new person in the house. Bang, dog's dead. Blow apart the family dog in front of children. Like terrible.
It doesn't take long if you want to find it. There's videos all over the place. It happens far too often. Just imagine the times that it doesn't get caught on video. And look, police protocol kills human beings as well.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next point.
Yeah, okay.
Brought up. Yeah, people die too. Yeah, and that's like that's some way. Like, man, if you're mad about like the DC doing this, like, just imagine if that is like that happens to your child, that happens to your spouse.
Yeah, in front of you in a hallway in Texas to a guy named Daniel Shaver. Okay, it happened, and the officer that committed that crime walks free and was allowed to maintain his retirement benefits. Okay. It was an absurdity that the Daniel Shaver was doing his absolute best to comply in a terrifying situation to confusing commands while his shorts were falling down and he was crawling on the ground. He took 7 bullets for that, 6 or 7 bullets for that. And that was all the result of protocol, and that the police officer got away with it scot-free is an absurd miscarriage of justice.
He ended up retiring because of like mental health reasons. Is that
Yeah, you bet. Like he killed a guy.
What it was. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, on that note, we are out of time for our WYSL show. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're probably going to keep talking for a few minutes after the show, so go find a Free Solution podcast wherever you find your podcast. There's more stuff out there. But thanks for joining us on WSL. Have a great night, folks. Take care.
Yeah. it was a perfect opportunity to kind of talk about Daniel Shaver, and it was a perfect
Yeah.
opportunity to talk about protocol. And I wish that I do remember our friend Brian experienced an interaction with police late at night based on a threat that came from not a threat, a report of a threat from someone out of state. And since it came from someone out of state, the police were obligated to visit his house right when they got it. There was no investigating the report because it came from out of state. Like they couldn't assume it was a jealous neighbor. They had to think it was a verifiable threat, or maybe it
Right.
had to do with social media because the threat was made on social media, or so arguably if the evidence was on social media, they had to respond to it because of the scroll. Something like that.
Mhm.
There's some code in the law that elevates the impact of the report, let's say. Like if a neighbor had said, "Hey, that guy's got a squirrel in his house," DC could be like, "Well, we'll send him a letter." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But since it
Right.
came
But
from
there's like, oh, it's
Texas
on TikTok and
and social media,
there's a video of the squirrel in the house. So
yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, so that I presume is what led to the heightened reaction to begin with, to judge signing off on a search warrant. Like, wow, just wow. Like when we rely on protocol, and look, they have like work productivity folders where they have to fill out like, all right, this is what I did for 2 hours. This is what I did for these are the interactions I had. So something like this is very exciting where they have to go do a home visit, where they have to go confront somebody. It's almost too much, right? We have we have too many people waiting in an office ready to do something to ultimately kill a squirrel, which that is not why any of them got into the job. It's just
No.
they have protocol that they have to follow, and they have a boring life that they have. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all those things. So it's sad and absurd. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It's like, yeah, and I believe you. I usually tend to take that side too. It's like no one got into this to like go and kill like a squirrel from TikTok, right? Like, but okay, but you get into these like procedures where you start to lose common sense, and it ends in tragedy.
Yeah. So I don't feel like we exhausted the possibilities, and we'll go on for a few more minutes, but I don't think we exhausted the Liz and Dick Cheney endorsement of Kamala Harris. I honestly think that could have cost him 5 million votes. like I'm just and
Did it not help? I mean,
well,
like, yeah, no, you did have like people like we played the Jon Stewart clip where he's just like, dude, really?
Dick
Like, that's who
Cheney?
you're promoting is Dick Cheney endorses you, and you why?
And they leaned into it.
Yeah,
Okay. It's not so much like, hey, thanks for the endorsement. It was like, you see, even neocon war lover, Iraq destroyer Dick Cheney endorses me, Kamala Harris. And now I'm going to campaign with his daughter because she, the queen of January 6th narratives, is happy that I could be president. Like, I got to say, I think it cost them millions of votes. I got just, and then
it might have.
Bill Kristol jumping on board, like anybody that has some
Bunch of
misgivings
people were
about
just like, because I imagine there's probably some people like on either like in the center who are like anti-war, who are like
yeah,
no, I think Trump seems more anti-war, and then there's gonna be like the far left folks who are like the like pro Palestine, like
yeah,
talking about like genocide in Gaza, and then they see like I don't know, like Donald Trump's gonna be worse, maybe, but like maybe I have to vote for Harris, even though I disagree on these issues. And then Tim Walz is talking about how Dick Cheney supports him, and I'm sure some of those
uh,
people are like, you know what, I'm out, I'm out,
I'm just not
I
going to
can't
vote
do
this
it.
time. Like I'm definitely not going in and voting for Donald Trump. But you know what? I also can't do
So
vote Harris Waltz.
I'll stay at home.
So I think that those things that the area around war that they did not effectively manage, those neocon endorsements, and their lead propagandists bragging about those neocon endorsements, and them occupying the same space at a rally, Kamala and Liz anyway. I do think that they paid a price for that. And
Yeah.
I do think it could be millions of votes, like
It might
literally,
be.
you know.
There's a chance. I like I know I've been generally positive about like democracy and doing our duty vote, but I'm gonna share. Do you know what Google search trends is?
No, I don't.
So Google search trends is like you can see like what are people searching for over time? Like what's the search volume of a particular search term?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna show you the search volume for did Joe Biden drop out?
Okay.
It's just right as the election is ramping up.
Like,
Did Joe Biden drop out? I think there's a
people
lot of people who
search
showed up
and didn't see
and
his
they're like,
name.
and they're like, oh, wait, I thought Joe was running for re-election.
That's oh my God, that's crazy. That's crazy.
So there's a chance that a bunch of people showed up and they're like, yo, I thought I was voting for Joe Biden. Who's this Harris person?
All right, that would actually be a happier place to be than where we are, right? Like you and I know all the details practically of every little political news story, and these people are just like, "What happened to Joe Biden?
Oh, Joe Biden's gone.
Damn."
Oh, no, I like that guy. Well, I don't know who Harris is, so I guess I'll just vote for Trump. I know. But yeah, I mean, like, God bless those folks. Like, it's not burdened with the nonsense that like we keep paying attention to.
Honestly, those are the real Americans, bro.
Yeah,
They're the ones that are making this country work. It's not.
Darn it, I just want a grill.
Yeah, man, our coffee's expensive, and not even worrying about anything else. Like,
yeah, right.
That's it.
But no, there's the chance that happened.
Here's one that I'd like to run down a little bit. Like this points to our friend Jared saying, and the Biden sporting the MAGA hat, and the arguably the potential that Joe Biden kind of sabotaged on some level Kamala Harris, the MAGA hat, the timing of calling Trump supporters garbage, and him being probably still cognizant enough to know that Trump would be able to capture some energy from that. And I certainly think that Donald Trump did a wonderful job with that. Like, I love when we lean into being called names like deplorables and garbage and how Donald Trump handles stuff like that. Like, I don't necessarily like anything about him, but I love that about
he's
him.
funny. He's funny. He leans into it. Like he knows a good shtick when like it pops up. So yeah, what's he do? Like when Joe Biden off the cuff, calls him garbage, even though Donald Trump's insulted everyone constantly.
I know.
But but no, like hypocrisy doesn't matter. But
he's a really bad person. I love
he just shows up and he's driving garbage trucks around and wearing his, like safety vests and stuff.
And you know who really is the garbage? Kamala and Harris. They're actually really garbage. It's just like,
yeah.
And then they try to beat him at his own game. And they're like, did you see that Donald Trump couldn't even climb up into a garbage truck? And it's like, he's 78 years old and he got up into the garbage truck with like one minor kind of little half step. You guys are not poning him the way that you think you're poning him. Like he actually looked pretty good there for an old dude.
He got it. It's fine.
He did it. I was like, I don't know that I would hit it that good. I would actually hit it that good for me being almost 60. I'm in pretty good shape. This is
15 million. Yeah, Patrick O'Connor on Facebook says so. 15 million Dems didn't vote this time. Yeah,
that's my brother, by the way. But yeah, that's gonna be an ongoing. The juxtaposition is did they really commit fraud in 2000 or in 2020? Or did really 15 million less Democrats show up to vote for the machine?
I really do think it's the latter. I think it's a bunch of people are like, no, this stinks. Not gonna do it. Or maybe it's just that they hate women. I don't know.
Well, it's got to be something. Like,
Hillary lost, Joe Biden won, and then Kamala lost. There's a pattern.
It's racism.
Yeah, that's sexism. It's
racism and sexism all rolled into one. We're the worst country to have ever countryed ever. Like,
Yeah, we don't. And Democrats rest easy. You don't need to change anything. It's just that America's sexist, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's
yeah,
sorry, it's out of your hands.
well, I do have an interesting. I posted a tweet before we came on. Oh, and also let's talk about Shelley's comment there. By the
By
way,
Facebook.
I was notified Facebook that my account is a memorial wall. I had no. Well, you haven't died, Shelley. So
Yeah, just you're not using that Facebook account, so it's not enough apparently.
but she's not using it because they locked her out of it.
Yeah,
They
they
don't
locked
want
her
her
out,
to
and so
have it.
now it's just
For comments on a Larry Sharp show where like it was probably like, oh, you're such an idiot, and that was like peak censorship time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or probably told one of the stories like of her losing a family member because that was a police officer or something like that, and they're like, oh, lock her out for gun violence. I don't remember that why exactly, but I think it was something like that.
something
You
like
know,
that. Well, listen, our buddy Mark Zuckerberg is a libertarian now. Like you just we gotta reach out and just tell him, hey, listen, get Shelley out of Facebook jail. Been long
Shelley's a
enough.
libertarian too, bro. Like that.
Yeah.
Do it like that. Come on, bro. Yeah, see, they threw out. I knew I had that part right. It was during a Sharp Way show, and yeah, absurd.
Yeah.
Oh, and she was talking about her nephew had just been
Nephew,
killed.
yeah.
That's right. Okay. So I was
Yeah,
pretty
my-
close, Shelley. I hope you know that. Like you're a real person
Yeah.
to me, and I can remember things that you say. So that's like 4 years ago when that happened.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Ryan Bedford. All I know is Kevin tried to jab us all. Yep. Mandatory vaccines for everybody.
Well,
Every single one.
arguably that was pretty funny when
Yeah.
when Ryan kept giving you crap about that, and I kept being like, I don't think
Just
that's what
rasping
Kevin's
all the
saying.
time.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's okay. RFK is going to ban all vaccines now. Like he's going to ban the vaccines. He's going to ban the fluoride.
Yeah.
Ban the seed oils. Just
I'm okay with all of those.
he's gonna
Wow.
he's gonna be in charge of the FDA, and I'm not gonna be able to use my avocado seed oil spray anymore.
Wait, you have avocado seed oil? That's got arsenic in it. You don't want avocado seed oil.
No.
You want avocado fruit oil is entirely different.
Maybe it's avocado fruit oil.
Well, yeah, no, everybody would agree that you can use that. Absolutely.
What if I want
And-
the arsenic?
Well, then
Well,
honestly,
spice things
arsenic
up.
has some medicinal purposes, some medicinal uses. So, I mean, part of a healthy regime, Kevin, just don't overdo it. I do think the pits in avocados have arsenic in them, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what it is.
No,
But
the fruit of the avocado nut does give off a mighty fine oil and is arguably a superfood.
Yeah.
It has like good fats, decent protein, but I think more importantly, the good fats that it has and low sugar.
Yeah.
And it absolutely delicious.
it's good. I mean, I'm gonna miss having avocados when Trump puts the tariffs on all of them. But it's nice while we had them.
He screws up the avocado trade.
That's
I'm gonna be
It's
pissed.
gonna be a thing. That's when the riots start.
Well, that's right when I go right after him. He'll get no quarter from me if he screws up the
Right.
avocado trade. I think he was saying he'll make exceptions. So
Hopefully for that one, like you got to protect the guac. All I'm saying.
oh my god, he was so. He is. Look, no matter what, guys, it's going to be funny. I think arguably I saw some potential for people like Chase Oliver to make waves in a Trump administration and grow in popularity, where he can be like, this is absurd. Look at what you're doing. This is a bad plan, a really, really bad plan. And then all of us libertarians can come back together and give one big group hug and then win the presidency in 2028, because I could out debate JD Vance. Honestly, I don't think I could. The dude's pretty smooth talker. He's really
Well, JD Vance, like he's kind of a smart dude. Like I mean, like he has like crazy ideas, but like I think he's like an intellectual guy in some ways.
But when I'm listening to him interact with somebody, he's like so appealing the way that he talks. I'm like, this guy could sell Nazism to the entire world. Like, I'm not kidding. He scares me.
Yeah, I mean, his national conservatism isn't great. Like it's said, but like I think he's well read and can make an effective argument. Like they're in a VP debate. Like I did like fairly well.
I thought he crushed it. I really
yeah.
did. And look, I hope that his nature is not what like because I have fears of authoritarians, even benevolent authoritarianism leads to authoritarianism, right? So,
Mhm.
and I think my fears are rational based on an analysis of history and where the motivations behind the bad events that often get glossed over, like the Nazis just popping up out of nowhere. That's not how it happened, right? There was the war debt. There was the Weimar Republic making promises that it couldn't really keep. All of those things kind of coalesced into a horrible amount of bigoted hatred that eventually made its way to the top of the country. And so I don't think so people like JD Vance who are very persuasive and charismatic scare me,
Yeah.
but not like
And
terrify me. But he's smart.
he's a smart guy. And he's interesting in that he's kind of like shifted a bunch over the years. So hopefully Ron Paul educates him. He comes back. But he's kind of anti-libertarian in a way. That's why I don't fully trust like he's been critical of libertarians, like openly critical in a way that most of the Republican Party like generally isn't.
I'm
So
I'm getting called out here. Okay, Tim O'Connor, if Kamala won, would you say, okay, this is going to be funny? I honestly was really, in a way, looking forward to her winning because a part of me loves the absurdity she would have brought to it. And I think I would have been able to be, I think I would have been able to be madder at her than I'm going to be at Trump, but I still think I'm going to find what, well, there's a lot, we're talking about infinite possibilities here. And there are things that Trump could do that would absolutely cause me to lose my mind. Right. But
yeah.
I could have been madder at Kamala because I think she would have doubled down on certain. This is all conjecture. She
Yeah.
lost.
It's all
Who
right.
knows? Who
I mean,
knows? I
listen,
promise I'll get mad at Trump. How's that sound, Ryan Bedford?
yeah, I mean, it like they can both be funny in some ways, and that's like sort of how we get through the misery of like their terrible policies, right?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
So I talked about it. It's like I dislike them and think they're going to be authoritarians for different reasons. I'm not playing the game of one's better than the other, and
Right.
I mean that. Like I said, if Kamala won, I'd be like, okay, we're gonna laugh at her word salads. We're gonna
Oh my
laugh at
God.
the ridiculous stuff while getting mad when she tries to like impose rent control and doesn't even do any of the zoning reform stuff I was hoping she would do.
Right. Or yeah. Okay. No, I'm with you. Like they will offer us, they will continue to offer libertarianism a possible path forward.
Yeah.
I do think the answer is two guys like Kevin and I who come from lean slightly differently, where we're both like reactionary on our side of what we see to be perfect justice for libertarianism and coming together and having real conversations about that and finding out, you know what? There's about a hair's breadth of difference at the end of the day of what we think the right policy would be, or who could fix this better than the other guy. Because like honestly, sure, if it was a perfect world and I could make Chase a monarch for a couple of years, I would freaking do it. I would do it. Okay. Because the dude would destroy a lot of the agencies. He would make taxation theft again. He would honor human property rights, and he would privatize freaking everything, man. And so, yeah, if that was a real possibility, I would.
Yeah,
do
I
it.
mean,
I'd let
great.
him be.
Yeah, like yeah, we had Chase off for a couple of years. He'd go full Javier Milei and like go nuts, right? Like that's
he needs a
but-
chainsaw.
yeah.
He needs.
So it's less dramatic, with it. Like it's what he should have done. He should just taken the chainsaw a bit. Just like, all right, I'm gonna co-opt this on our libertarian brothers in Argentina. Carry around a chainsaw with me. That's open carry. That's the new open carry.
Yeah, like would I make Larry Sharp king for a couple years? Yeah, I absolutely would.
Right.
I absolutely would. I make Kevin king for a couple years? Yeah, Kevin would get bored faster than most of us. And he'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna go hang with my kids. The heck with this idea. That's the king. That's the king I want right there. That guy. Like, all right, I think. All right, I did away with the ATF. It's now a convenience store. I'm going to play with my kids. See you later.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Go to playground with the boys. All right.
Yeah. Free safety training for guns, guys. And like real libertarians will be like, we shouldn't have to pay for that. And Kevin would be like, I think it's a good idea. And I'd be like, you know what? That's fine. You guys can just calm down. you know?
Yeah. All right. On that note, I think it's time to call it a night. It's getting late.
All right.
As always, folks, appreciate you being here. Appreciate you listening to the show. Y'all rock. We're gonna get through it. We're gonna get through it. The death of democracy, y'all.
Yeah.
It's gonna be okay.
We will. We'll get through it.
All right. Have a good night, folks.
Good night.